You're listening to Beyond the Campaign, and this is episode number 3. Welcome to Beyond the Campaign. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, podcast publicist, author, and host of this show and Read the Damn Book. Here, you're going to learn from political candidates and from politicians. We're not just going to talk about the issues. We're going to talk about the human beings who are investing themselves in us so that we can invest ourselves in them. This is Beyond the Campaign. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and today we're going to learn about what the Lieutenant Governor of California does with Michael Tubbs, who is running for Lieutenant Governor. Michael is a former council member and the former mayor of Stockton, and we had such a great time getting to know what exactly a Lieutenant Governor does, his hot takes on redistricting in California, and learning about Michael's history, his life journey, and how he came into politics. It's a fantastic story. I know you're going to enjoy hearing all about it. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
I am so excited to get to talk to you today. Your story is amazing. You are doing the politics thing. Question why sometimes, but we need somebody to do it. So I'm excited to get to know you today.
I'm excited for the opportunity. I love to talk, so this should be fun.
Perfect. Can you take a moment to introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Hello, my name is Michael Tubbs. I am the former mayor of Stockton, California, former council member of Stockton, California. I founded Marriage for a Guaranteed Income and End Poverty in California. I'm running for lieutenant governor. I have 3 beautiful kids and a beautiful wife, and now I live in Los Angeles.
I love it. And your wife's a big deal too. We got to give her a little credit
Probably a
too.
bigger deal. Yeah, two-time New York best-selling author wife.
You can't say that about every wife. My husband can't say that about me. So
She can't say that about me.
I want to talk about you and your story because I don't want to, and I was thinking about how do I frame this because I don't want to say rags to riches because that's very cliche, but I
I'm not
feel
rich. Yeah, if I did something else, maybe. Rags to town halls.
like how did your journey is incredible and it brings hope. I think that anyone who reads your story and you have a memoir that's out, there's hope for somebody who is out there who has lived a life like yours to be running for lieutenant governor of California. It's a big step. So can we talk a bit about your youth, your childhood growing up and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, no, I tell people all the time, it's not lost on me that running for lieutenant governor, first, it's just as a 35-year-old period, it's a big deal. But given sort of all I've been able to experience and achieve and learn from, it's a blessing I don't take for granted. And really, my story starts in Stockton, California, mid-sized city in California, 320,000 people. 12th largest in California, 62nd largest in the country, but a city with real challenges. I remember growing up and writing my college essays about the headlines that said lowest in literacy and highest in crime. Or one of my other college essays, I wrote about growing up in a city that Forbes continually called the most miserable city in the country. And even within that context, we live in the good parts of the city that was deemed miserable. We lived in some of the worst neighborhoods. My mom was a teenager. She was 16 when she was pregnant with me. My father has been incarcerated for the past 32 years, 33 years. I'm 35. When I was born, he was in a juvenile detention facility. He was actually fighting fires. He was a prison firefighter at 18, 19 years
Which
old.
is amazing. I want to point that out because especially in California where we have so many wildfires. I grew up in Paradise, so the
Oh,
Camp Fire
wow.
destroyed my childhood home.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
And people don't realize or recognize the people who are incarcerated who are out there fighting these fires, getting paid $1 a
Pennies.
day, like ridiculous amount of money, who are really heroes essentially doing this work. So thank you to your
Oh,
father for doing that as well.
that's so kind. So and I think that backdrop gave me a proximity to a lot of the issues that drove me to public service and into public office. But it wasn't all doom and gloom. My mom, my aunt, and grandmother were incredibly resilient, incredibly kind, and incredibly loving. And they made sure that my siblings and I realized that we were the priority, that we were important. They taught me lessons like, despite our background, despite where we live, despite hearing gunshots at night, or despite sometimes being hungry, that was an indictment on my potential. That was an indictment on my ability. That was an indictment on my worth. Those were just things to overcome and things we should work twice as hard to get ahead. They taught me that I was better than anybody, but no one was better than me. That despite whose people parents were and how much money they had, I was equally as sacred, equally as valuable. They fought for me all the time. Surprising to some people, I guess. I used to get in trouble a lot in school for talking or for being defiant or for talking back or for asking questions. And whether I was right or wrong, they were always there, taking off work because at the time they were working hourly, taking off work, losing money to come sit in the room and make sure the teachers knew that I had a support system that valued education and that would fight for me. They put me in church where I learned leadership, where I learned that to be a righteous person meant to serve, to learn that I wasn't here for random, but God had a plan for my life. And I learned about leadership and planning meetings and planning events and service. We used to go to convalescent home on Saturdays and talk to those in the convalescent hospitals. We would sometimes even be hungry, serving food to folks who are hungry, giving clothes away, giving hand-me-downs I had worn to other folks, and just really gave me a view of myself as someone with something to offer, with someone that had a reason for being, with someone who had some worth and some dignity. And then the people I grew up with in Stockton were amazing people. They're the people like my mom and grandmother that kind of really shaped my worldview. And they're amazing because they weren't overtly political. They were just really deeply community minded. They were like the little league and basketball coaches who were pseudo fathers and mentors for folks without fathers. Not perfect people, but folks who would take you to for a cheeseburger after the game, who looked out for other kids as if they were their own. They were the front desk reception ladies at school, at work. They were just regular salt of the earth people who never appeared to me to be dumb, never appeared to me to be lazy, never appeared to me to be anything less than sort of the mentors and the aunties and the uncles and the elders that guided me. So from that, I was able to be the first one in my family to go to college. I went to Stanford University. And it's hilarious because when I got there, the idea was that I wasn't coming back to Stockton. The idea was that I worked incredibly hard to get to Stanford. And while there, the point was, let's go make some money. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go see the world. Let's go. Let's spread your wings and fly. And I was able to go to South Africa. I did intern at Google. But then after that, I entered in the White House for President Obama. And my job was with mayors and councils, which is hilarious because it was clearly on purpose. But I was so upset. I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. I did not want to spend any time with mayors and councils. I wanted to do education policy. I wanted to be at the domestic policy council. But I think I ranked intergovernmental affairs literally last. But that's where I was. I spent 12 hours a day for 3 months Googling mayors and council members, writing memos about mayors and council members, meeting with mayors and council members, and didn't realize I was getting a bunch of on-the-ground training, a bunch of time to learn the job that I was going to do just literally a year later. So then while in the White House, my cousin, unfortunately, was a victim of a homicide in Stockton. He was murdered. And it was really that sense of survivor's guilt, that pain, that anger that left me after much prayer and meditation and thinking with two choices. It was really action or apathy. We could just say, hey, that's just the way the world is. Tragic things unfortunately happen. Violence in a community like Stockton is nothing new. Gun violence for Black and Latino men is the leading cause of death. So, hey, that's just the way it is. Or we have to do something about it. So the short answer to your question is I decided to run for office because I was obsessed with the question, is this the best we can do?
Mm.
If it was the best we could do, I'm like, okay, I'm fine with it. But there wasn't any rigor, any data, or anything clear to me that suggested that the status quo, the way things were, was the best that we can do, particularly because the status quo at that time and continues just wasn't working for me or my family or my community. And I think being at the White House, being at Stanford, and just seeing people doing hard things outside of government with impossible things, creating new companies, new ways of communicating, winning gold medals, new cancer, like just all these, like creating new worlds. And I was like, well, if they could do that, why not? Why can't we do that in government? Why can't we use this huge tool that we have in government, these massive resources, the intense scale, and actually build something better, or could we build something better? So that was a question that motivated me then and continues to motivate me to this day. Like, is this the best we can do? And if not, let's figure out how do we make it better.
I think we can do a lot better than where we are right now. I think we
And
went backwards.
honestly, we have to, Michelle. We have to.
I hope every day I get up, I'm like, what now? We need better, please. Somebody step up and do better. Anybody? Literally anybody. What was that like to go from, I mean, these are such different worlds. You're in Stockton, you're living this life. And then I do want to point out that you're the first one to go to college. And then it's not just any college, you went to Stanford. You didn't just go to, the state university. You're like, no, we're going to go big. So you go to Stanford and then we're just going to go intern at the White House. These are huge steps in totally different worlds. And then to come back to Stockton, that's another shakeup. But then to run for mayor, that's just a whole nother experience in and of itself. And I've never run for any kind of political position, but it's nasty.
Oh. Well, let me. I think one of the lessons my parents and my favorite rapper Tupac taught me. He had a quote that said, "You don't have to change the essence of who you are to be successful." And my parents, my mom, my aunt, and grandmother always stressed like just being yourself, being authentic. I remember, so my whole life I was always straddling a couple worlds. So in elementary school, we lived in the neighborhood with like the lowest life expectancy and the highest poverty in the city for a long time. But my grandfather was a Vietnam War vet, so they used his war pension to pay for me and my cousins to go to a private school in Stockton. And before I would go, every day my mom would say, those kids have doctors and lawyers for parents,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't, but you'll be fine. You're just, and every day she was, and those worlds were so extreme. So and then in high school, I was in the International Baccalaureate program, which is like a program for nerdy people like me. But it was in the context of my neighborhood school, which was this large urban high school that had been dubbed the dropout factory, that had like a 55% high school graduation rate, that had like a 15% A through G graduation rate. And having traversed those worlds, from the people I played basketball with and rode the bus with and lived in my neighborhood to the people I was in class with. So I think I've been equipped at an early age with feeling equally at home in different extremes, but also what I begin to appreciate now that I'm older is that it's a real superpower to be able to bring these worlds together and to bring these worlds in conversation and to really show folks that there's different experiences for sure. There's different realities for sure, but the people actually aren't that different. That the innate intelligence or talent isn't that much different. And I think I've been really privileged to be able to bring nuance to discussions about poverty or about communities like Stockton in rooms where they just study communities like Stockton, just talk about them, but I haven't ever lived there. And the same way I can translate for my folks in communities like Stockton about these rooms, the rooms where it happened, and about how, like, yes, there's some people there that are smart, but most of them aren't that, at least aren't as smart, or at least as smart as you.
Right.
Like,
Right.
so I think that helped navigate the extremes. And then coming back, before I ran for mayor, I was on city council for 4 years.
That's right. You were the youngest, right?
Yeah, I was 21 years. My senior year in college, I spent running for city council and trying to get my master's. It was a ridiculous time. But not trying, I did get it, but it was just a lot of work. But the 4 years on city council were instructive as well because it showed me the power of leadership, that I didn't have like secret sauce. I didn't have like any power. Like, my father's in jail. My mom was making 40K a year. I just graduated college. I'm 21 years old. I don't have a political machine.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we're able to get so much done because people respected leadership. When I ran for city council, we had just declared bankruptcy. We had the highest per capita murder rate in the country, even higher than the year my cousin was murdered. And we got to work. I was able to bring all the different nonprofits in my council district together to agree on one strategy and to agree on one mechanism so that when funding came, we wouldn't compete and that we'd have a strategy about how we want to improve our district. We were able to close down this problem liquor store that folks have been trying to close down for 30 years. We were able to open a health clinic that had been dormant for a decade. And it wasn't because anything secret sauce. It was literally because I was taking a tour one time of the health clinic and I said, why is this closed? And that created some inquiry and they realized, oh, it's closed because we couldn't find anyone to staff it. I was like, oh, well, I'm in conversation with some folks that would operate a health clinic. Like, damn, 3 months. Or with the liquor store, it took 2 years, but it started with saying, hey, how can we close this down? And what I learned from being a council person was to frame questions in terms of what's possible,
Mm.
because the status quo always wants to say no. Whether it's working or not, it has a lot of friends. And the best way to beat it is to create inquiry around possibilities. Like, what would it take? I'm not asking you how difficult it is. I'm not asking you the likelihood. I'm saying, what would it take? What do we have to do? Because we know if we don't try, it doesn't change. If we do try, it might not, but it gives us a fighting chance. So those experiences on city council were instructive because it showed me, like, aha, government can work. I think if we weren't so successful as a council person, just given the rancor and the tenor of Stockton politics, I would have gave up. Like, hey, I tried. I gave you my good years in my 20s. Nothing's really changing. This is just the way it is. But we actually got things done that people said couldn't get done. We got people to work together who couldn't work together. My district was the south part of the city where I grew up, had been so neglected and written off that the time I was a council person for the first time, we got a grand jury report about the disinvestment in South Stockton that we used to get like things were we got the first bank to open up in that district in 50 years. 50 years. And not because of anything special. It's because myself and the bank president had a relationship. And we had lunch one time and I said, just very seriously, like, why is there a bank in my district? Like, am I missing something? And he said, you know what? I've been talking with a board member from your district about putting a bank there. It's time to get serious about it. Like I was
That
like, oh,
easy, right?
and
Yeah.
everything's not, but oftentimes leadership and asking the right questions is so catalytic. So I did that for 4 years and was thinking about my next step. And I was shocked when the head of the business council, like the Chamber of Commerce, and the police chief separately approached me and said, we really think you should consider running for mayor. I'm 25 years old at the time, this black kid from South Stockton. And I was like, the police chief, who I have the amazing 8-year working relationship with, but for him to break protocol and wade into politics a little bit and say, hey, it would mean a lot to me if you ran. And then for the head of the business council, the most conservative, well-off members of the community, saying, we really need you to run for mayor at 25. I was like, there might be something here because I knew I could get my folks. I knew I could get my district. I knew I could get young people and people of color. But the fact that the people who requested that I run were folks that in my head weren't immediately part of my coalition or people I thought I would have to convince more really gave me the courage to run because I have been thinking about it. That's been 4 years on city council. Me and the mayor would fight all the time because one thing about me, I don't like bullies and I don't like corruption. And I don't like when things don't make sense. So so those three things, and he was like a bully, objectively corrupt, like he was FBI indicted. And like
That's a little corrupt.
things just weren't making sense. So we would fight all the time. And he would always say, well, you're not the mayor yet. And at the time I had no even visions of being there. It's like this is just so wrong. So anyway, ran for mayor. It was a difficult campaign for a little bit because it wasn't just me. Everyone saw the mayor was vulnerable. So it was myself. It was a man named Carlos Villapadua, who was a supervisor for like 8 years, whose family had a big name in Stockton. The city is like 35% Latino. and only 10% black, and like 5% of voters are black. So he was a formidable candidate, and myself, but we won the primary by 8 points. Got 35% of the vote, and it was me and the incumbent, and I ended up winning my mayoral election the same night Donald Trump was elected with 72% of the vote. And I was Stockton's first black mayor. I was the youngest mayor of a major city, 100,000 people or more in American history. And then spent 4 years being a mayor with Trump as president during COVID, during the Black Lives Matter protest. It was a very not easy time to be in leadership. I learned so much.
No, that like everything that could be something was thrown at you during those 4 years.
With no playbook, with no like, this is
Right.
what you do. It's
Yeah.
like,
Here's a pandemic. Have fun. Here's Donald Trump. Have fun. Yeah, that's enough that and yet you're still wanting to be in politics even after that. That wasn't enough apparently for you.
well, part of it, Michelle, is, and maybe it's just my church upbringing. I really can be motivated by, like, I am so blessed. Like, my life is so good. Like, my wife is brilliant and beautiful and very successful. My 3 kids are healthy and happy and beautiful. We live in Los Angeles. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a million things I could do. Like, but I just feel like there's more for me to do in public service because everyone's not good, right? And this is before the hell we've seen over the past several months since the second Trump presidency. And also, I think I'm always motivated by a sense of purpose and calling. I think, particularly given what we did in Stockton, I did that with 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans as mayor. So I'm like, I just think I'm weirdly adjusted or made to be successful in sort of the messiness and the conflict of politics and still remain relatively happy, still remain very clear about who I am and what I stand for. And I just feel like in this moment, if it was just about politics to be a politician, then no, count me out. But I really think politics is a medium or a stage for leaders to sort of exert influence and to use the political system to make things better. So I think that's why I'm still drawn to it. I still feel that there's not even feel, it's very clear. There's a need for clear leadership that's not just political but moral, that can help frame things in terms of this is just wrong. Like, we are better than this. Like, no, we don't kidnap people. No, we don't take food off babies' plates. No, we don't take people off healthcare. Like, that's just not. It's unacceptable. There's no there's no other way to say it. So that's why. And then let me backtrack and say that also because when I was mayor, we did so many things that people thought would never happen. We reduced homicides by 40% and shootings by 30%. We increased our number of police officers. So we had per capita the highest we had ever had in the city's history, while decreasing officer-involved shootings. We led the state in declining officer-involved shootings, showing that no, you can have enough officers to make a community safe, but they don't have to abuse people. Like, you can have that in police reform. You could have like a true system of justice where everyone's held accountable, whether you're a citizen or a police officer. And then when you mess up, there's accountability and consequences, and also second chances, right? Like we could be holistic in our thinking. We did a scholarship program where every single kid who graduates from a Stockton public high school is guaranteed a 2-year, 4-year, or even a trade school, cosmetology, coding scholarship, with the message being, we expect you to do something after high school. And I was able to raise over $20 million for that, which wasn't on my docket when I ran, but we did the first universal basic income pilot in the country. And now over 200 mayors are part of Mayors for Guaranteed Income. Over 70 communities have followed suit. In fact, in Santa Clara County, under the leadership of then Supervisor Cortese and now State Senator Cortese, one of the first counties to do it after us, focus on foster youth and help with them when they age out the system so they don't become homeless. We just did a bunch of stuff that had never been done in Stockton's history. And I think it's, again, like, success makes it hard to be cynical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, being in contact and knowing people whose lives have been changed, people who are literally alive today because of some policies, people who are in college today, because of some policies. People who are employed or housed today, it's like, it's not perfect. It's not easy, but that's so, at least for me, that, like some people, like some of my friends get like endorphins rush when they make a bunch of money. Like they strike a deal. It's like, and I'm sure that feels good. But for me, like my biggest rush is like when we accomplish something difficult and like we can talk to the people and we see that their lives have changed. We launched the biggest AmeriCorps program in the state in Little Stockton, where we had 100 Service Corps members in all of our schools helping young people, called the Stockton Service Corps, which is now a model for how the state does AmeriCorps programs across the state. Back when we had AmeriCorps before Trump cut. So again, another long answer, but that's why. It's just that I just know that there's so much untapped potential that like what we see isn't all there is. And it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy to think politics is just cynicism and corruption and power and self-aggrandizement, which is like which is partly true. Like that is a brand of politics. That is probably the predominant brand of politics. But I just experienced a brand of politics that wasn't perfect. That still pissed some people off. That still created some conflict, but was able to actually do things, to move things, to expand thinking, to get things done. And California is just the perfect place for that because of our resources, our assets, our people. Like there's no excuse for California to have the highest rate of poverty, to not be able to build housing, like to have so much homelessness. There's no excuse. In Stockton, we were bankrupt. California, we're the fourth largest economy in the world. There's no, in Stockton, there was a negotiation between 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats on every single vote. In California, one party rules every office. There's no excuse. And I think for me, the answer is leadership. That the state just needs leadership that's going to push and force and dream and create conflict and get it right sometimes and maybe mess up, but learn from it and get it right the next time. But we'll show people that no, we're not resting on our laurels. We're not just here to say Trump is bad. Like that's like, okay. Like
Right.
we know that. We didn't vote for him the first time. We didn't vote for him again. We get that. But Trump didn't create homelessness in California. He didn't create poverty in California. He didn't create the lack of progress on major infrastructure projects in California. He didn't create like none of the things that we're fighting in California. He's creating. He's making them worse, but he's not the source. And I think that's why I'm running to remind us that while we fight Trump, which we have to, and while we hold the line, we also have to have a conversation with ourselves about how are we modeling what the antidote to MAGA looks like. So when that experiment fails, folks look to us like, okay, because right now, if MAGA fails, they look to California. No one wants to be in a state they can't afford to live in. No one wants to be in a state that feels unsafe. No one wants to live in a state where there's a bunch of homelessness. No one wants to be in a state where their kids have to live with them forever because they can't afford housing. Like no one wants to live in a state where you can't get anything done, where it's so hard to open a business. Like that's not liberal. That's not progressive. That's just terrible governance. That's just like not, you know what I'm saying? So I'm sorry, I'm on my stump now, but that's
No,
why.
I love it. As a lifelong Californian, I've spent time in Texas and in Illinois, but short blips. I came back. I love our state. I absolutely love it, and I have a love-hate relationship with Newsom. I love that he defends us, to the death, and then he does stupid things like have a podcast, or he does some really stupid things, and then he
I think
redeems himself the
try
next
to
week. And
figure out how to meet the moment. But I have to admit, Newsom has been a mentor. I have a really strong relationship with the governor, so I can't be unbiased in my assessment. But I hear you.
But I will love him today, and tomorrow I'll be like, "What the hell were you thinking?" And then the next day I'll be like, "Oh, thank you." Like I think somebody called him like Daddy Newsom or Uncle Newsom or something like that. I'm like, "Yeah, okay." I think that we need him defending us right now. He is the man to defend our
He
state.
is in this moment particularly.
Yes.
He is so. I think for me, the biggest lessons I've learned from the governor were during his recall fight, where he like doubled down and did some of the most amazing, in my opinion, legislation and programs of his governorship, facing that threat of a recall and saying, "No, I'm not going to back up. I'm not going to we're going to double down on pre-K. We're going to double down on healthcare. We're going to double. And I was like, wow, like that was a real. I was like, this is courage.
Yeah.
And then in this moment, in terms of like really, just there's no playbook. You can't wait for someone to say whether you can do it or not. Just seizing the moment, saying what you think, fighting the bully head on, speaking the truth, communicating with folks, protecting folks, reminding us like this is not like this is abnormal. This is abnormal. This is dysfunctional. This is not how a federal government behaves towards being biased. Its best state or its most important. Its most important state. So I agree with you. I think in this moment, he and Karen Bass have been showing, just being in LA, have been showing incredible leadership.
Oh, Mayor Bass, yes, we give her a shout out for sure. Yes, she has met the moment, and I think there's so much criticism that comes from people who don't fully understand the big picture. You know, she got a lot of criticism for the fires of, you didn't talk about Altadena. Yeah, she's not the mayor of Altadena, but you go ahead outside of California and you criticize all you want. You don't understand our geography because you also think it.
People, I'm like, listen, Altadena, yeah, she's a Black woman. Of course she cares about what happens to Altadena and the Black and Latino community there. Like, yeah, but she's in her authority is in LA. And she has to focus on her constituents. And maybe we should put pressure on the folks who represent Altadena and also ask the question, why is this such a thriving community unincorporated? Why does Altadena not have a mayor? And let's go give that, right?
Yep. Big picture. So I want to make sure, I want to cover two things with you specifically, because you're running for lieutenant governor. And I think people don't know what a lieutenant governor is. Like, is this a vice governor? Like, what exactly are you running for? And what is it you're going to do as lieutenant governor?
So the lieutenant governor is the second highest elected official in California. And the job, I'll tell you the job description, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. So the job description is you are the acting mayor when the acting governor when the governor is absent or out of state. You are the only person in the entire state that sits on the UC and CSU, the California University of California, the California State University Board. So you're like this, in my opinion, you're the czar of higher education, or the you sit on the State Lands Commission, one of 3 people. And then you're supposed to chair the Economic Development Commission, but the governor has to call a quorum, and the governor has to call a quorum for that commission in the last 30 years. So that's the job description. But
which is really important right now. Yeah. I want to make sure everybody understands, because we have federal funds being taken away from these colleges. We have federal lands that are trying to be sold out from under us. And those are huge parts of our state.
Yeah, now I think people are like, oh, wow, we have the UC, CSU, state lands. So those things are important. And part of the job of lieutenant governor will be figuring out creative funding strategies. Like, how do we backfill the research and all the amazing things our community college, our UC and CSU system does. B, helping make sure we protect our immigrant students in those systems and make sure our systems are complying with the law, but not in so far that puts our students at harm's way for family separation, deportation. And then, but there's also more those systems can do. I believe those systems have to do a better job in terms of employee treatment. Every 2 years, there's a strike from UC, CSU workers, from the teachers, not just one group. It's like from adjunct lecturers to research assistants, to all the groups are constantly having to fight. And the best university system in the world should also be the best employer in the world. And I've sat in negotiations. I've been on the opposite side. I've had cantankerous conversations with laborers about contract agreements. So I understand negotiations aren't patty cake. But I do think if folks are constantly striking, they can't be that. They're not making all that up. Something wrong there. So I think there's that. I think given our housing crisis, the CSU and the UC system has to be part of the solution. And they have to build housing, much in the same way they build research centers and facilities. In fact, the UC and CSU systems are 2 of the only systems that can build by right. They don't have to go through the same local entitlement processes. They can build faster. And they sit on the acres and acres and acres of land.
Some beautiful land.
So as lieutenant governor, I'm going to be pushing us to build more, and not just student housing, but workforce housing. Just like we expect Google and everyone else to build housing for their workers because they employ a lot of people, UC, CSUs, and community college systems should also be building housing for their workers. So be really pushing and fighting for that. preparing our students for the 21st century. AI is here. It's not going anywhere. I think the big job of the lieutenant governor as someone with the time to think about the future is to bring the stakeholders together to think about what are we going to do, not if, but when disruption happens because of AI. How do we make sure we keep workers whole? Who will be displaced? How do we help people transition from what's the plan? What's the strategy? And it's not going to happen in the moment of crisis because we don't do a good job with that. It's not going to happen by talking in silos. It's going to happen when leadership brings people together and say, look, we don't have to walk away here as friends. We don't have to walk away here as besties, but we at least need to walk away here feeling like we were part of something. That's not going to be perfect. It's going to be iterative, but California, I think, has to lead the way on AI policy, has to lead the way on ensuring that we harness all the good that we can get from AI and mitigate the harms because they can exasperate already existing tensions. And then I think the lieutenant governor, as lieutenant governor, I want to take the Economic Development Commission role, but focusing more on our startups and small businesses, right? If the governor won't call a quorum, okay, how do we talk to the little tech and startup community about sort of how can we help them navigate California's regulations? How do you make it easy for them to open up? Because I think the most progressive thing to do is to open a business and to employ people and to pay more tax and pay taxes. I'm all in for that. Like people who are creating jobs, people who are building things, that times 100. You're not evil. You're not the problem. Come here. We want you here and figure out ways to operationalize that for folks. And then lastly, I think the lieutenant governor has to be a voice of moral reasoning and clarity. Like I get so sick of talking about California as the fourth largest economy in the world in of itself, because it's like, well, the fourth largest economy for who? Like that's great platitude, but what does that mean when half the population is one life thing away from eviction? Where my entire generation can afford to buy their first home, despite going to schools like UCLA or CSU San Diego or Stanford. Like what does it mean when folks are working 2 or 3 jobs and sleeping in their cars? Like, no, let's figure out how to harness this fourth largest economy in a way that works, where everyone doesn't have the same outcome, but at least has a semblance of opportunity. That everyone has a chance, that everyone has an opportunity, and that we don't need to set ceilings, but can we set a floor? Like, what's the basic standard that no one in this great Golden State should not live beneath, and how do we get there? And I'll be quiet after this, but particularly as a mayor, I have a huge heart for the parts of California that have been left behind. Where I'm from, Stockton, Central Valley, Fres, yes, as they say in Fresno, inland California, the whole the place that feeds the rest of the world, but also has some of the highest poverty rates in the country. Like, what's the specific strategy for those places? Like, how are we thinking? Because that's where people can afford housing still. That's where there's more land to build. That's where the population growth is happening. When I was on city council in Stockton, in 2012, the population was 290,000. When I left as mayor, it was 330,000. I think today it's like 350,000. It's going to be 400,000 people by 2030, almost 500,000. Probably 500,000 by 2040. Like, why are we not thinking about how to make sure those areas have as much opportunity as Oakland and LA and San Francisco and San Diego? And, so that's some of the stuff I want to do as lieutenant governor.
The one other thing is the hot topic that's right now, and it's redistricting. Because I think that what we're seeing in Texas, I think California, obviously, we're back to Newsom. He's like, oh, I see what you're doing. Hold my beer. I'm going to meet you, and I'm going to beat you at your own game. What do we do with this? Because I have mixed feelings. I think that we shouldn't just be redistricting to redistrict and to load, the one side. But at the same time, nobody else is stepping up to combat what's going on in Texas. So here we are.
I would say in normal times, against a normal opponent, then norms and normalcy should reign. Like, okay, this is how we redistrict. But we are literally in a constitutional crisis, and 2026 midterms may be our last chance at establishing a legislative check on this unhinged president and administration. and by any means necessary has to be on the table, particularly when they are advancing the same thing. I think my only critique is that I wish we had as much conviction as who love democracy of those who don't, who love opportunity and justice of those who don't, because we do everything in response. We do everything in opposition. We do everything as like, okay, they do that, we're gonna do that. We have to begin to go on the offensive. But with that being said, I think in this case, it's not ideal, but it's warranted because we're talking about the difference between folks having health care or not, the difference between women being able to go to Planned Parenthood, not just for reproductive care, but for all their health care or not. We're talking about the difference between young people having a Department of Education that can meet special needs, hell, that exists or not. The difference between having a vaccine schedule or not. Like, we're like the stakes are so high. I think redistricting is the least we can do if we want the America we said we want to build. Because for me, it's been very clear the last 6 months have been even more chilling than reading Project 2025. I remember reading Project 2025 and being like, oh my, this is some dark stuff. Like this,
and then to see it play out,
but to like see it happen, this redistricting would be the difference between being kidnapped. And people think it's just like undocumented people. There's been so many instances of citizens being abducted and kidnapped, and there's no real recourse. And with the ICE budget being tripled or quadrupled, there's not enough undocumented folks for that level of policing and surveillance. So they're going to have to start going after other people. Like so, I on a theoretical level, I do like 2010 was a different time. It was like, you know what? Let's take the politics out of drawing maps. Let's draw maps that make sense based off contiguous boundaries and community culture, etc. But when you're fighting someone who doesn't believe in the rule of law, doesn't believe in rules, that believes that he is the wrong, he is the rules, and not even the ends justify the means, but that he is the means, the ends, and the justification, then we have to use all our tools and not in some pursuit of a partisan mission. I think it's unfortunate that at least those elected, the only people that seem to care about this country as it currently was, because are Democrats. And so, because this shouldn't be partisan. This should be about, hey, what can we do to preserve our democracy? What can we do to give us a fighting chance to build a true multiracial democracy? Like, what can we do to make sure our kids grow up in America that's closer to 2008 than 1958, right? What can we do? So all I have to say, but to your point, it's sad that it's come to this. It is remorseful it's come to this, but I submit if we had been as drastic earlier, maybe it wouldn't have. If we had eliminated the filibuster when we had the opportunity to, if we had expanded the Supreme Court when we had the opportunity to, if we had even just rushed in some of our nominations when we had the opportunity to, we would live in a different world. But our adherence to norms that no longer exist in the same way, or norms over impact, or norms over like what's at reality, has got us to this point where now we have to be very clear about the tools we have and how do we use them.
And I fully agree that we need to not just be reactive. Our party is not proactive at all, truly in anything.
And like it's like, wait, I like this redistricting thing. I was like, wait, we could have did that. I was like, I didn't even know it was. I didn't know it was an option. It was like,
yeah.
And my wife, she has this beautiful quote. She says all the time. She says like, well, I talk about how the world we live in is a product of someone's imagination. We can imagine something better. And she says it's so much better. She says, this world is made up. Like folks made it up. Like a bunch of folks said this, it's literally made up, so it could be remade. So this appearance to like, we can't, no. At that time, people sat down and said, it's the best thing we could do. This time, she's like, it could be remade up. And I'm like, that's the frame I have. It's like, yeah, the world, this country is what it is. But in context, maybe there's some things we have to do differently.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I hope that we get to see you doing this and making it better. And we'll see who the governor is. Right? They all
Right?
seem to come out of like who's going to run. And I'm still not sure. So
It's going to be, yeah, that governor's race is going to be
it's going to be interesting.
interesting. But lieutenant governor race, hey, Michael Tubbs, I'm running for lieutenant governor. Really love your support.
I love it. Where can everybody support you? Where can they find you, donate, all of the good stuff?
Yeah, you can find me at michaeltubbsforca.com. That's my campaign website. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Michael D. Tubbs, Michael. Or I just created a TikTok at
Oh.
Michael D. Tubbs. So you'll be one of the first people if you sign
Oh,
up
I'll
now.
go follow you. You follow me back.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have, I have to like download it, but I make the videos though.
Okay, good.
Uh,
Because this will be on TikTok. We will
oh,
post the
cool. Hey,
clips.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Hey,
I will need to tag you.
hey, TikTok, I'm here. I'm finally here. I've held on for too long. And then on yeah, that's it. Yeah, because no one's on Facebook or X anymore. So Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah. You are awesome. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
As someone who was born and raised in California, I love hearing everything that Michael has done and continues to do, what his hopes are for the future of our state. And I think he has some wonderful ideas and can't wait to see what's going to happen in this next election. Please take some time to get to know your local elected officials. You heard from Michael what it was to be on his city council, to be the mayor, to work with the people who live every day in that city. Go reach out to your council member, reach out to your mayor, get to know them. And then you never know, they might be running for lieutenant governor someday, and you might want to have some further impact on your state. I can't wait until we meet our next candidate or politician on Beyond the Campaign.